It's time to step into the Coming Out Lounge, a cool, safe space to be true to your sexual self. With your host, Rick Clemens. Rick has helped hundreds of people come out of the closet, and now each week he's bringing you cool insights for loving and accepting yourself, boosting your self-confidence, and living a guilt-free, purpose-filled life on the other side of the closet doors. Cuddle up with yourself and get ready for heartwarming coming out stories, ideas for living authentically, and tips for being fully self-expressed. Now here's your host, Coming Out Coach Rick.
Hey, closet dwellers and closet busters. It is time once again to take a little trek into the Coming Out Lounge. And today we're going to go a little bit country, a little bit gay, and we're going to completely come out and talk about what it's like to still be living in a world where being out of the closet can sometimes mean the difference between life and death, or having a job and getting canned from that job, or it could even be getting in the way of following your passion and being shunned by those in your own particular industry, because it's all about sexuality and being who you are. And today we're going to focus on the latter, about that sexuality piece, because when we open the doorways to people like my guest, who are beautiful singers and country music performers, and let them come out to be who they are, then we realize there's no shame about being gay and being a gay man in the country music scene. Now, he will be not the very first person to be navigating these waters in the country music scene, but he's found a beautiful way with his California, well, I call it California country crooner style, to bring his raw truth out into the open for everyone to hear. His real truth about being a gay man standing firmly in the Nashville country scene. His latest single is called Slow Down, and Brandon Stansell invites everyone to just kind of slow down and embrace that life we've been given. And he's looking at this slow down moment from a prism that's really about what it's like to be in those very first moments of a beautiful budding relationship, and how that moment can be your life teacher. And really, as I was listening to it, it kind of validated the phrase, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I love how the music and the words that he used in this song really addresses the ups and downs of relationships we all have with one another. So I'd love to bring this beautiful country singing sensation, guy who's really making a mark, into the Coming Out Lounge. Welcome to the show, Brandon. Glad to have you here, buddy.
Oh, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet, man. So they kind of all got a taste of where you're at. Yeah, you're kind of charting some territory, being a country music singer, that as an openly gay man, I mean, you've never shied away from this from the moment you started stepping into the scene, right?
Well, no, I mean, I put out my first record a year or so ago, and by then, I had been out for 5 or 6 years, and it was never really a question of whether or not I was going to portray myself in any other light than what I actually am. So my first EP that I put out was a concept record through a breakup that I went through. And even though most of the songs are pretty gender neutral, we do throw a pronoun in there at the very end. And that's just because, for me, the whole project was very personal.
Yeah.
And each song was meant to be exactly what it is. I didn't write the project in a way where I wanted it to be commercial or really accessible to anyone other than myself. It just so happens other people like to listen to it.
Exactly.
But we did end up throwing a pronoun in there on one of the songs, and, that kind of was a signifier of, my own sexuality if that wasn't, clear to the listener. It was something the song needed, and something I was very happy to put in. And to answer your question is no. Ever since I've started writing and putting out my own music, it's been very important for me to be genuine and be authentic in, in the material that I'm putting out.
So what age were you when you actually came out of the closet?
I was 22. I was 22. Yeah.
And so just kind of for time frame, what years were those? Were they like, in the 2000s? Where were you in the lovely decades?
Yeah, so I was a junior in college. So this is probably around 2008, 2009. So it feels like a million years ago, but it really wasn't in the grand scheme of things. But, I think anyone that goes through that knows how drastically life changes, when you decide to, let people in and show all of your, show yourself, basically.
Right.
Life starts to evolve very quickly from what you've always known. So it feels like a million years ago. It really wasn't. And yeah, but I've changed a lot since 2009.
So what do you think's been the biggest change for you?
Well, I mean, I didn't have the most ideal coming out. I grew up in a small town in Tennessee. I left that town and moved to Nashville to go to school, and lived in Nashville for about 5 years. And even though Nashville is a much bigger place than where I grew up, the attitudes toward the LGBT community weren't much different from where I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So, it wasn't just my friends and colleagues. It was, my family never really knew what to do with a gay son or a gay sibling. So my coming out was really hard for me, and it kind of forced me onto feet that I didn't know I had underneath me, because what I had always considered to be my support system kind of fell apart. And when I say that I changed because I had to. I had to learn how to, kind of fend for myself and take care of myself. And, I think that naturally changes people, and it definitely changed me.
Mm. I love that metaphor, the way you just described it, that, discovering the feet you didn't know you had underneath you. I can tell it's like, there's the music guy showing up right there. It's great. Just some great words there. And I actually just had a beautiful, vision of that, because I think for so many of us that we go through this coming out journey, that's part of the problem, is we don't know how we're going to do this. We don't know what to expect. And suddenly we discover we've got some feet we can walk on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a great conversation with one of my best friends yesterday, because, I still have quite a tumultuous relationship with a bunch of my family members. I blame them for a lot, because they did a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve to be blamed. But in that same breath, I can't help but to thank them. They did and said some things that, weren't great,
mm-hmm.
but those things made me the person that I am, and I'm really proud of that. They forced me to grow up, and they forced me to be strong, and they forced me to be a very clear and conscientious person with very strong ideals and beliefs, and a passion for my music, a passion for gay rights, a passion
mm-hmm.
for human rights, something that I just didn't grow up having. And then because of my coming out experience, because of, the things that happened to me during, that time, 2009, 2010, I'm a different person than I was, and I'm a better person than I was. So yeah, in one breath, I really hate that these things happen to me, in the same breath, it's thank you. Mm-hmm. Because I wouldn't be this way without you.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that we don't realize is we have to go through this to see the other side. Nothing comes, and I hate to sound very trite and, sound like right out of every other self-help book out there, but if we don't go through this, we can't see what we don't know. We have to experience these challenges and these ups and downs, and if we can realize, okay, I'm going to go through this and this is going to be better for me, then we have what we need to start pushing through it. So what drew you to the country music scene? I mean, obviously you grew up, in Tennessee, but was that always kind of in your blood?
Oh, yeah. So I started, when I was 6, I started working I did my first show in Nashville. My mom used to just drive me back and forth doing shows at what used to be called Opryland. So it was a big theme park and a hotel. Hotel's still there.
Yep.
And they used to put on, Easter shows and Christmas shows and summer shows. And
right.
We just drove back and forth all the time. I just wore my mother out. But I did my very first show at 6 on the Grand Ole Opry stage.
Wow.
And even before that was a fan of country music, kind of what my grandparents listened to, my parents listened to it. I grew up loving country music of the 1960s, and then I was a huge 90s country fan. You just couldn't give me enough Reba CDs.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I just always loved it and knew that I wanted to sing it. I think the hardest part was just finding my place. In Nashville, it's like living in L.A., where you turn around in the corner and there are people like, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I sing country music. And they're like, oh, I sing country music. You're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Being out here in LA, it's like, what do you do? I'm an actor. Oh, I'm an actor. Everybody's an actor.
Everybody's an actor. That's right.
It wasn't intentional, but I ended up leaving Nashville and moving to New York for about 3 years and working up there, and then eventually moving out here to LA. And it really took, the move out of Nashville to find my sound, find my voice, find my feet, find my confidence to know that, I could do this thing that I had wanted to do my whole life. Mm. But it took kind of separating myself from everyone else that was trying to do what I was trying to do. Yeah. So, but I've always known I wanted to do it. And so it finally feels good to be here.
Wow. So since you brought her up, I have to share, I had my own little Reba moment. I actually went to high school in Arkansas and went to college in Tennessee and finished college in Oklahoma. So I was in that area, and I remember going to the Tulsa State Fair and walking around and walking in one of the buildings. And I wasn't a huge country fan. I mean, I was I don't know. I didn't have, I guess I would say I was more like, the Commodores and all that sort of stuff. That was my generation. And I remember walking into this building and I hear this country music. And so we wander over there. It's like, here's this redheaded gal and she's just singing. I'm like, I kind of like her music. And she goes, thanks very much. I'm Reba McEntire. And I'm like, okay, cool. Clap, 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 clap. And then now suddenly it's like, boom, here we are. I'm like, wow, I saw her win. I mean, I can literally say I saw her win, and it was kind of funny. So I figured you would appreciate that, given that you obviously have this little fan crush on her too. And I just love her to death. I think she's just awesome. So,
well, she is worthy of that. I'll tell you that. She's so talented and I don't know, she's just got such a great personality, and I look up to her a lot. There's a lot of people in country music that I look up to, but I grew up a big fan of hers, so she has a special place in my heart.
So back to, you got out of Tennessee, came to LA, and then, I know you've kind of been, in words, I even brought it up in the introduction, you're kind of like this California country crooner. So what does that mean to you? What is this thing that you've done that has made you your own brand of country? What's the difference here?
So the title gets longer. Every person that says, everyone adds their own little word to it.
I could go a whole new direction. I could go California country crooner, CrossFitter with great set of pecs and abs and bubble butt. There you go. So, we just took the Coming Out Lounge to a whole nother, okay, now we're messing around on, Scruff and Grinder or whatever. But anyway, all right, we'll reel it back in. Let's get back to California country crooner. We're going to leave it at that.
I told someone when I was putting this project together, I was like, I finally, with this music and what I'm writing now, I finally felt like that I was hitting this sound that I wanted to find, but I couldn't put my finger on it, because I love and grew up with old school country and love that sound. I mean, I just feel like there's nothing that sounds, nothing that sounds like the steel guitar. I would have that on every song if I could,
right?
And someone taking the mandolin, I just love that sound. But I also live a very, my life here in LA is a little bit more laid back. It's a little bit more carefree than I ever was in Nashville or New York. So there's this kind of breeze to the music that I wanted to bring to it, where it didn't feel so heavy and serious and those sorts of things. Yeah, so I finally started writing with a couple different people and really started to kind of hone in on this kind of easy breezy country sound that I just started calling my California country sound.
That's awesome, man. So I love Slow Down. I have to admit it. It's just a great song. You. And of course the visuals, it's like, okay, nothing beats a half naked guy in a shower, So, we're going to have tons of downloads on this episode. I can already tell, because we've already kind of gone over the hill here. People are going to be like, screw listening to this. Let's go look at the video now. So it seemed like it was something, just as I watched, and I know, when we're being filmed and stuff, because I watched myself when I've done some filming, that, we start to bring out some of ourselves. But it just seemed like as I watched you do the film, there was definitely some parts of yourself that looked like you were really opening up to and releasing and really letting show forth. Is that a pretty good, accurate description of what was going on for you as you were filming that?
Yeah, well, I'm a terrible actor. You have to know that. So anything that you see on these videos, they have to feel real to me, or else I'm not going to be able to do it.
Okay. Well, you're a singer. You're not an actor. Now, you may get there one day, but I totally get that.
I always finish these things working with Trent, and I walk off the set, and I'm like, I don't know why anyone would want to do this. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. It's so tough, and it just it's so tiring, and it just requires a lot of things that I don't have.
Yep.
So it's always a shot in the dark as to what we're going to get. But I think we've been lucky so far that I've been able to, and it helps that I'm the one writing the music. So there's definitely a personal connection to the song. So normally I just kind of have to put myself back into the situations and relive, the lyrics a little bit. It seems to work. The hope is that, that they come across and that people can watch them and relate and feel like, they've been there. They've experienced that feeling. It's kind of what I want with my music as well, I want them to be accessible and relatable so that, people can sing along and feel like they're, living it right along with me.
It was interesting so first I heard the song. I didn't even go to the video. And then I'm like, oh, I really like the song. And then, of course, I went to the video and I was like, oh, okay. Time for this girl to cool down a little bit, But then as I was watching the video, I thought, this could be shot with two women. It could be shot with a heterosexual couple. It was just, it was so, I don't know. I just started seeing so much in that. I think this is where, I talk a lot about where I fit into this whole realm of who am I and what was I put on the planet to do. And I know in the last couple of years, I've really felt the calling that I want to be a bridge voice. I'm like, I guess because I was married to a woman and then I came out and, now I'm on the other side of that closet door, but I'm a father. And so I have a lot of different perspectives on this. And I'm realizing how much I've been called to be that kind of storyteller of how do we build the bridge, between these things. Yeah. And I almost feel like, what you're doing is very similar because when we can take the, as you said in the, earlier, you take and just drop the pronoun in at the very end. It doesn't really signify anything until that moment that we have to even have the pronoun, so to speak, and I think there's the bridge that we can start. Do you see that as kind of being part of your overall, here's how, Brandon shows up in the world, that he wants to make sure he's, doing some different things so that people don't see any gender, so to speak, or sexuality, or where do you see yourself being?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm a, singer-songwriter. So my goal is to make music that people enjoy and want to sing along to, but also that, genuine to me as an artist. Just one facet of that is my sexuality. So, I think that in the writing process, it's important for me to, for the most part, just keep the song gender neutral, if, because I prefer that. I prefer to let the song be accessible to anyone across the board and, have them sing along. When it comes to the visuals, if I'm going to be in it, if I'm going to be playing the narrative, then, there's definitely going to be a man playing opposite me. Right. I think that in those moments, it's important that, that I'm not only making art, but I'm also being genuine to the person that I am. And that's kind of where that comes from. Right.
It's your artistic license. It's your music. It's your, art that you're doing. It's like this podcast to me is I get to do, whatever the fuck I want to do because it's my podcast, but I also want to make sure it's accessible. I want to make sure that as we talk about things, as we're paralleling, slow down, this is a beautiful song that really does talk about all of us slowing down and really being in that raw emotion in that moment of a beautiful new relationship. And whether you're gay, straight, bi, trans, whatever it is, we all want to experience a relationship. And I say all. I know there's some people out there I don't want to have a relationship. Cool. Okay, that's cool too. But, it's one of those things that I think, again, we tend to put divides up that don't need to be put up around so many things. And that's where we end up hurting one another in our society too.
No, I agree. And I Trey and I have talked about this, where we talk about the song versus the visuals and things like that. And, I think one of the more powerful things is that for the most part, you can listen to the music that I'm putting out and really enjoy it and not know me and not know my story or my background or anything. And again, really see yourself in the lyrics. Right. And then it's not until you see those visuals and you're like, oh, I didn't know he was gay, or I didn't expect this. I don't know. But for me, the things that shine through are, you see, my first video was of a breakup and this guy completely heartbroken over losing someone that he loved, so much. Right. And then just the opposite, falling in love. Those are universal feelings that all humans feel. And so I think the music allows me to kind of, just get that human emotion across. And then when people see the visuals and they see it's two men together, it's almost, if they're not comfortable with that, or it's something that they didn't expect or didn't anticipate, it's a little eye-opening, I think, to say, oh my God, this song that I've been hearing, I kind of envisioned myself in it, but I guess it works like this too. It's just kind of a reminder that, this thing that you can feel and that you have felt is also felt by maybe somebody that you don't know or that you've never felt, that you could relate to, like a gay man if you're straight or, whatever. But I feel like it kind of pulls us all in and says, we're not all that different.
Mm-hmm. Well, I find it interesting that you bring up the piece, somebody watching this and then they see two men, and then if they get uncomfortable about it, it's one of my mantras, that I work with my clients on. And as I'm speaking on stages to say, this is where we all are very similar in our human being. Your discomfort isn't about me. It's about you. And no matter who I'm working with, I try to make them really feel that if I'm making you uncomfortable, it's not about what I'm doing here. It's something within you that's calling you to examine what's making this uncomfortable for you. And to me, that's where we get to grow as human beings, is looking at the discomfort we experience and then taking the magnifying lens and looking through that lens and going, okay, what is this about me? What is it really saying about me? So I love that you are doing this and putting it into a space where, this is definitely pushing some new boundaries, especially, we've seen it in other music scenes. I can't say that I've seen a lot of country music where this is being shared. So bravo for you, young man.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said, the music has kind of like been my, jumping off point, but, we live in a time where we are having to, people like myself and you and, the LGBT community as a whole, are just having to, fight for the things that we want and to hold on to the rights that we have and to get the ones we don't. So, I think that my goal now is twofold. It's try to make music to entertain people. I love that. I'm passionate about that. I want to do it, but equally passionate about my community, my friends, and our livelihoods and well-beings. And yeah, so I'm kind of shifting that way, too, an entertainer, yes, but an advocate, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so trying to find my footing there a little bit, but actively looking for it.
Yeah. Well, and you're also quite the advocate of, CrossFit. So we're just going to put that out there that this guy's like a total CrossFit addict, which is great.
Some have said.
Yeah.
Some have said.
Yeah. I have tried CrossFit and I failed miserably, and I'm proud to say I have failed miserably, and I'm totally cool with that. So, and it's kind of interesting because I've tried it a couple of different times, and I think, if I'm being fair to CrossFit, I did used to be in that industry. I was a spin instructor. I worked for Crunch Fitness and LA Fitness, and so I get that piece, but man, I didn't have the right experiences. I think if I could find the right CrossFit, I'd probably be like, okay, yeah, I got this, but I'm also 50 years old now. It's like, okay, I got to be kind of careful with some of the stuff I do. Papa can only do so much at times, so.
Don't worry. I think we all have our limits. And
we do.
It's no joke when you walk in those doors, but I enjoy it. Most of my friends do it, and it's kind of where I built my community here in LA.
Yeah.
At the gym, people are like, I can't believe you spend so much time there. And I'm like, I'm only lifting a percentage of that time. The rest of the time, I'm in a corner gabbing with somebody.
Yeah. So there we have it. True confessions of a country singer CrossFitter. He's really not working out. He's just gabbing in the corner like most us gay men do. So there we have it.
Right,
so,
it's mainly social hour.
Fun. Well, and that's, that's what it is. It's so funny. So, okay, here's my true confession. I'm not sure I've ever even talked about this on the podcast, but maybe I have. So I was a spin instructor, which I've talked about that, but I don't know that I've ever shared that I was the singing spin instructor. So I would get up there and I would have Beyonce and Madonna and, I remember I used to do one entire spin class to the soundtrack of Dreamgirls, and, the women loved it.
You win.
The guys were kind of like, what the hell is this? I'm like, it's the soundtrack to Dreamgirls, so get your ass back on that bike and start pedaling, because we've only got one night only, and they were just like, this guy is a flippin' freak. But then they would walk out of there and they could hardly walk. I'm like, so see, I may be gay, I may have made you just do spin to a soundtrack, but your ass is grass and you're sweating, so my job here is done. Thank you very much. So well,
I support that. I am perpetually singing at the gym. My workout partners just love to hate it.
Yeah.
My workout partner is one of my best friends, and he's a huge fan of my music, which is so flattering to me. But he puts my songs on his workout playlist. So every now and then they'll come on over the gym speakers. There was another guy who came in who is very anti-country music, but comes like walking through the doors, and one of my songs comes on, and he's like, "What is this shit?" And I just look up and I was like, that's me.
That's so funny.
One of my favorite moments.
Well, I always had such a diversity of music. I mean, we'd be pumping along and we'd be doing some current stuff, and then suddenly, it'd be Shania Twain, and people were like, what the fuck is this? And then the next thing it would be like Josh Groban. They're like, oh my God, this guy is like totally, but they're like, it all works. It all fit together. They're like, wow, I can't believe we just did Beyonce, Shania, Josh Groban, and now we're back to doing like, Maroon 5. It's like, okay, they just like, they didn't get it, but it's great. So what's next for you, man? What are you working on now?
Well, started writing for the rest of this project. So Slow Down is just an EP, so I'm writing now for the full LP. So the idea is to re-release it this time, a little bit earlier next year, probably around October, and release a full LP, so probably like 10, 11 songs.
Awesome.
So start writing again next week. We'll have a few things that didn't go on the EP that may go on the final record, but I have a lot of writing to do, and then we just shot video for Never Know, which is the third and final song on the EP that we released, and that's going to come out a little bit later next month or early January. It kind of depends on a couple different things, but we just shot it this weekend in Joshua Tree. It's going to be a totally different feel than Dear John or Slow Down. It's moody, it's like artistic, it's going to be different, but I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to put it out there and kind of hear what people think about it. So probably 4 or 5 weeks for that. And then we will shoot a video for the song Spare Change in December. There's a lot coming up just in the next 6 weeks.
Awesome.
And then next year is going to be primarily focused on writing for the full-length record.
That's fantastic, man. Well, when we get closer there, then we'll have to have you back to talk about the entire record being released and all that good stuff.
Love it.
So you've shared so much of yourself, and in such a beautiful way today, man. I really appreciate it. But I'd love for you to just give one final share. If you could give any advice to anyone out there that's struggling with coming out, maybe they're struggling to be a musician, or just anything that you feel like could really inspire someone, other than taking off your shirt, what would you say?
I would say, actively pursue what you want. And, that looks different for every single person. But, nothing's ever going to change or be different if you aren't ready and willing to, fight those little pieces of discomfort that we were talking about before, and actively, look for your next step. So whether that is coming out or, that is, becoming a musician or, pursuing something that you've always wanted to do but never done, like I would say, be active, look for your next step. Yeah.
I think that when you're not active, it's very easy to then just sit and start to do the excuse making and everything. But when you're active, it's much easier to keep moving forward, and the excuses to go hide in the corner. So.
And you said it exactly right. I had a friend here in LA about almost 2.5 years ago right before I was putting out my first EP, and I just really didn't know what I was going to do or what I could do. And I was having dinner with him, and he just kind of looked at me and said, I hate to say this, but all I hear from you are excuses, and you can't do anything with that. I can't help you. You can't even help yourself. Stop making excuses and do something. Yeah. And I was like, okay, here we go. Yeah. So, really, I don't even know if he knows what a huge help and, that was to me, and just how inspiring that was to me. Just kind of call me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But ever since then, I felt like I have been leaning forward. And anytime I feel like I'm kicking back, I just put this out, or, I just had this, this thing happen to me, and that's great, and I can sit back for a while. It's almost like a kick, where it's like, nope, it's on to something else. Keep leaning forward.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I have a little quote that I use a lot with clients, and it's, excuses are easier to make than action is to take. And when I say that, they kind of stop and pause. And it's like, well, think about it. It's so much easier to just make an excuse than it is to go, okay, I'm going to go take some action right now and get something done. And it's just very, very inspiring to look at stuff like that. Anyway, Brandon, I'm so glad you took time out of your schedule, and good luck with everything, and keep doing what you're doing. Keep sharing yourself in the way you are. Keep building those beautiful bridges. Can't wait to hear about the new album and have you back when that's ready to come out, man.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. It's so nice to talk to you.
You too, man.
And I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, and we're going to have everything about Brandon up on the show page. You're going to have links to his website, his Twitter account, some of his music, some of the videos. Just go out there and support him any way you can. We just want to make sure that everybody keeps supporting one another in this journey we're on to be exactly who we're meant to be. And with that, we're going to wrap it up for another episode of the Coming Out Lounge. I'm Rick Clemens, the Coming Out Coach, and we will catch up with you all in just a few days. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. Hey, Closet Dwellers and Coming Out Lounge listeners. I wanted to invite you to check something out. You know, for all the years that I've been a Coming Out Coach, one thing I've learned is sometimes people come to do the work with me and they only need a little bit of help to get over something very particular and very important to them. It could be reconciling their religion and sexuality. Maybe it's learning how to have the difficult conversations where they say, I'm gay. Possibly it could be, oh my God, I'm out of the closet, but now how do I do this same-sex dating and mating sort of thing? Well, what I can tell you is throughout the years, there are common things that show up over and over and over again. And what I've heard most from my clients and listeners of the podcast is, I want a way to work with you just on these particular subjects. Yay! I am so excited because I've taken the action and I've made this possible. So how do you find out about these particular programs? You go to thecomingoutcoach.com, or if you're on the show page right now listening to the podcast or have just listened to the podcast, over to the right-hand side of the podcast description and everything is an icon that says one-on-one coaching sessions. Click on that button, you'll be taken to a page that describes each of the different 9 sessions I'm offering. There are one-on-one sessions that we can do via phone, Skype, or even FaceTime. They're very action-oriented. We go right to the topic that you want to talk about. And each of these sessions also includes a copy of my book, Frankly, My Dear, I'm Gay. So what more could you ask for? You get me for 90 minutes devoted to you, plus my book. So go check it out. See if there's something that could help you as you step out, step up, and step in to living your powerful truth. Take care. I'm Rick Clemens, the Coming Out Coach. I look forward to working with you.
You've just experienced the Coming Out Lounge. Go online to www.comingoutlounge.com to learn more, and tune in again next week for more stories and tips for being true to yourself.